So in today's video, I have a question. And the question is, what is the one thing that could change your life, your business, your relationship with others? And I feel that that word is attitude. So attitude is the magic word, and it determines the world that you see, the results that you get, and it's really that simple. So by changing your attitude, you have that opportunity to change your life. Excuse me. So I took a reference earlier on from the Oxford English Dictionary, and I asked, what is attitude? And the Oxford English Dictionary describes it as a way of thinking, feeling, or behaving that reflects a person's opinions or views about something or someone. Now, another way to view this could be it's a combination of your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions towards a particular object, person, or a circumstance. So at its core, attitude determines how you interpret events and how you really respond to them. But there's three main components of attitude. There's thoughts, there's the feelings, and there's the actions. So what are the thoughts? The thoughts are what you believe and what you think. Where we look at what are the feelings, and that is what you actually feel about one particular thing, or about a particular topic or a subject. And the last one is the action. How are you inclined to act? So let us take a brief look at those three components for the next few moments, and that's on thoughts, feelings, and actions. So if we look at, I suppose, going back to what the Bible originally stated, in the book of Proverbs, it states that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So ask yourself the question, what are you thinking about throughout each moment of the day? Or do you actually take the time to think about what your thoughts, what your feelings, and what your actions might be throughout each day? So remember, it's our thoughts that are going to shape our present and future reality. So sometimes we look at our bank balance, we might be unhappy with the bottom line, but the truth is, it is the thoughts that we have had that have created those results that we have in our life. I've been there in the past. I've had the worst bank balance going. Minus, the red lights were flashing on it. But it really went down to my thinking and my conditioning and the way I thought about that particular thing. But glad to say that we can turn all those things around by having a different thought, a different feeling, and taking different actions to change those things. And that's how we change those results in our life, by thoughts, by feelings, by actions. And I'm going to repeat those words over the next few videos. Thoughts, feelings, and actions, because this is really what it's all about, how to determine that better attitude. But our feelings give us that emotional energy to our thoughts. So ask yourself, how do you feel about something? Is really based on what you believe about it. And sometimes those beliefs that we've received from our grandparents, our parents, maybe our teachers in school, we've created a particular image in our head of that this is the way that this is supposed to be. And the reality of it is that if it's negative, it allows us to create fear, anxiety, worry, anger, frustration. But if it's a positive belief, it can allow us to create hope, excitement, and motivation. So there's two complete polar opposites. But it's up to us to make a decision which we choose. And that also goes down to our attitude. And then your thoughts and feelings will lead into either action or inaction. So you need to ask yourself that question, what am I doing every day to move that needle forward? Am I taking positive results or am I taking negative results? If you think you fail, the reality of it is you probably will. But if you take that option to think that you're going to succeed, I know you will. You will be determined. You will take that bold, decisive action that's required. So your behavior really reinforces your attitude. So each time you take that aligned action with your attitude, that attitude gets stronger. For example, and I've written this down here, if you have a positive attitude and act with enthusiasm, people respond really well, which gives you feedback and then reinforces your positivity. But if you act out of fear or doubt, your likely outcomes are going to confirm your negative beliefs. So it's all like a loop. You have your thoughts, you have your feelings, you have your actions, and you have your results. And then you can reinforce those thoughts. But let's look at it like, I suppose, in the form of a loop. If you look at the negative loop, what's the thought? The thought is, I can never succeed. But the positive, the opposite side to that is that I can figure this out. Again, looking at the negative, what way would you feel if you thought that you were never going to succeed? The natural thing you're going to do is you're going to feel discouraged. But in the polar opposite, if you're positive and that you feel that you can figure this, or you think that you're going to figure this out, then you feel motivated. Going back to the negative, if you're thinking of failure, you feel discouraged, are you going to take action? No, you're going to stagnate. Again, on the polar opposite, if you think that you're going to figure this out, if you feel motivated, you're going to take that action and you're going to make progress. This is why changing your thoughts is so incredibly powerful. It's the most powerful way to transform your attitude and ultimately your outcomes. So truthfully, your attitude is really your secret weapon. It's your personal power source. It is the filter which you see everything through, and it determines what you do with what life throws at you. So you see, life doesn't really care where you come from or where I come from. It really cares the way that you show up. And how you show up is determined by your attitude. Really, really is important that we start to understand that. So let's take a look at attitude even in the workplace. Whether as an entrepreneur or whether as an employee, how can attitude factor in the results that we create? Your attitude determines your altitude. Look, we've all heard that before, but the reality of it is, it's not just your attitude, it's not just your aptitude that determines your attitude. It's not just a catchy phrase, but this is actually the truth. Your attitude determines every single thing in your life. Some of the most successful people that you'd ever meet didn't have the best resources. They didn't have the highest IQ, or they didn't get all those lucky breaks that we've often heard and spoken about. We all know someone who's that story, but I can guarantee you one thing: they all had a particular mindset. They all had a mindset that they believed that they could do what they wanted to do. And their attitude was that I will not quit, that I will learn, that I will rise, that I will not fail, that I will take this opportunity. But the reality of it is, when they fell or when they failed, they got back up, because attitude just doesn't stop with success. It's what gets you through the particular struggle, because you can't always control life, but you can control attitude. You can't always control the economy. You can't always control the traffic. You can't always control what other people say to you or about others around you, but you can control your response. So you have two choices each and every day. You can choose to focus on the problems or the possibilities, or you can dwell in fear, or you can rise in faith. This is what you can do. So what is it going to be for you? Is it going to be problems where you dwell in fear, or is it going to be possibilities where you rise in faith? You have that particular choice. You can complain or you can create. We've been told before that we to create can help us get out of the most unbelievable situations, and we use our imagination. It's one of our highest mental faculties. But we don't use it enough. That beautiful imagination that we've been given sometimes can be taken away from us when we're in school, because we've been told so often, why are you looking out the window? What are you looking at? Why aren't you focusing on what's going on in the classroom? But so many times there's a lot of young people out there that have looked out that window and they're picturing exactly the way they want their life to be. But that tends to be taken away from us in the school. Now, I'm not saying that school isn't vital for us. It's a very, very important part of our life. But it's also important that we start to use our imagination to be able to create what we want to create. Let me just paint a small picture. Once I heard from the late, great speaker Jim Rohn, and I'm sure many of you have heard of Jim. He was a phenomenal human being. But he said and I've written this down in front of me here, he said 2 people lose their job on the same day. They had the same role, the same income, the same setbacks. And one says, this is definitely the end of the road. And the other says, this is actually the start of something better. The second person seeing that opportunity. But Jim stated that one waits for somebody to rescue them, while the other starts to learn new skills, calling old contacts, showing up to new opportunities. And a few months later, one of them is still stuck and the other is thriving. It's the same event that both people have gone through, but it's a completely different attitude. You see, it's not what happens to you that matters. It's what you can do with it. And attitude is contagious. So what are you spreading? Your attitude affects everything and everyone around you. It affects your team, it affects your family, it affects your clients. So you walk into a room with energy and with purpose. Everyone in the room feels invigorated, they feel alive because of your presence. But if you walk in with, negativity, bitterness or blame, you lower that. Just 1 second. You lower that, and really what I want you to become is become the thermometer, not the thermostat. And I love that saying that Jim said before, become the thermostat, not the thermometer. I'd also love to just for the next minute just share another short story that I heard before from, I think it's Soichiro Honda, and it was called Building from the Ashes. So Honda, he's the founder of the Honda Motor Company, and he started a small workshop in Japan making piston rings for Toyota car manufacturers. And his first setback was that Toyota rejected his designs because they were poor quality. But instead of quitting, Honda decided that he'd go back to school, he'd learn more about engineering, and he tried again. And he said this time Toyota accepted. Then he had a second setback. His factory was bombed twice during World War II. And instead of giving up, he salvaged what he could, and then he started to rebuild. And the third setback was that there was an earthquake, which destroyed his new factory. And rather than see this as a sign to quit, he sold what was left to Toyota. He began working on a new idea, small motorized bicycles to help people travel around after the war when fuel and cars were scarce. His invention became the Super Cub, which the reality is that it became one of the most popular selling motorcycles in the global market, especially where he was located. So despite all those trials, all those rejections, all those calamities that happened due to World War and through to acts of God, Honda had a winning attitude. But what was the lesson that he took from that? He said that his success came from his refusal to let circumstances decide his destiny. Each disaster could have been the end, but he treated every setback as a raw material for the comeback. And his own words, I should say, sum it up. He said, success is 99% failure. And I'm sure each and every one of you that are in business or entrepreneurs or going through any particular kind of struggle can agree with that. But what I love about his story is that it teaches us that also that there's a law of vibration, which that's always an action. Honda stayed tuned to innovation, he stayed tuned to persistence, not destruction or loss. His belief, I should say, and enthusiasm kept attracting new ideas, it kept attracting the right people, it kept attracting the opportunities to build one of the largest car manufacturers in the world. So I suppose when we look at Honda, what we need to do, we need to set the tone. We just don't need to reflect it. We need to become the person with the best attitude in that room. So what I want of you throughout the days is how can you create a better attitude each and every day as you go into your workplace or as an entrepreneur? What's your attitude going to be like to be? So I suppose my next question is, how do each and every one of us build that winning attitude? Let me give you a few tools that I got from mentors before. It says to start each day with gratitude. Each day name 3 things that you're grateful for. For gratitude flips your focus from really lack to abundance. But it's awful important as well that we start to watch the language that we're using. What you say out loud really determines who you're becoming, because words do shape beliefs. And surround yourselves with people who have done the thing that you truly want to do, people who've started to win the battles, people who've come through the struggles. Hang around with those people that challenge you to grow. Don't start to complain. That's the worst place that you can be, loathing and self-pity. Have that attitude. It's really, really important. And then start to take responsibility. Winners own their attitude. They don't blame the traffic. They don't blame the weather. They don't blame their boss. They don't blame the government. They ask, what can I do? So make that decision daily. Attitude is a one-time choice. It's a daily decision. Sometimes it's an hourly decision, but you choose it over and over again. And I suppose my final words to close off in this video would be, look, you can have the best strategy in the whole world. You can have the best tools. You can have the best intentions. But if your attitude is off, your life is going to be off too. So fix the attitude. Unlock the altitude. Because the truth is, the most powerful asset that you have is not what's in your bank account. It's what's upstairs. It's what's in your mind. It's your spirit. It's your fire. It's what you can create. So I think really what I want to finally say is that today I challenge you is to check your attitude, choose your attitude, and charge forward with the right attitude in every single thing that you do and say. Because the world doesn't give you what you deserve. It gives you what you expect, and it gives you what you work for and what you believe that you can create and what your life and the life that you've always imagined. But it all starts with one word. It's attitude. I hope this has been some help to somebody today. If it has, please leave me a comment in the comment section below. And thank you for watching this video. Good night and God bless.